Hi, everybody, and welcome. We have a great show for you today, Inspiring Women Leaders. We are going to be joined by unique guest, Voviette Morgan, the special agent in charge of the FBI in Los Angeles, and Jennifer Povlitz, Western Managing Director of the #1 wealth management company in the world. They are spectacular and they will inspire you. I'm Lorraine Siegel. I am the founder, chair, and CEO of the Exceptional Women Awardees Foundation. Our mission is to enable high potential, high level women to rise in their careers. We make successful people even more successful. Why did we start this foundation? Well, 46 years ago, when I immigrated to the United States, this incredible country that we live in, I was clueless. I had no idea. I didn't know which was the right law school to go to, the right business school to go to. I didn't know what the right career was or the right job or how to behave. I was clueless. And I vowed to myself that if one day I could ever make it in this world and come back, I would create an organization of mentors who would mentor women like me who walked the road less traveled. And so throughout my career as a lawyer, a serial entrepreneur, managing companies in healthcare and aerospace distribution and professional services, I waited for the moment when I could create this foundation. And so we have. And so today I'm going to share with you two amazing and unique leaders. Let's get right to it. Voviette Morgan, Special Agent in charge of the FBI. Welcome.
Thank you, Lorraine.
So happy to have you with us. Okay, Voviette and Jennifer, both of you, I am sure, because I too have never in our lifetimes seen a confluence of aggregation and destruction and reinvention as we are living through at this moment. It is truly a moment in time. And Voviette, you are managing chaos brilliantly. How do you manage chaos in the FBI?
Well, Lorraine, first, again, thank you for inviting me to be a part of today's conversation. I'm thrilled to be sharing this platform with Jennifer, and I hope that we are able to add a little value to the conversation that we embark upon today. But when you talk about leading in chaos and which strategies do you apply, I think it's interesting for me and the FBI is that chaos is our day-to-day activity, is that we deal in crises on a day-to-day basis. And the bottom line is the more you do it, the better you get at it. And you start to build a little bit of a muscle, if you will, in order to deal with challenging situations and deal within a crisis. And for me, that's probably one of the greatest gifts the FBI has given me, is because I've learned to become comfortable in very uncomfortable situations. And I think from a leadership perspective, that's what you have to be able to do, is you have to be comfortable in very uncomfortable situations. And I think the first thing in order to address any type of activity as far as a crisis situation or leading in chaos is the goal is to bring order to the chaos. You have to bring order to the chaos. And I think good leaders are able to do that when they bring a level of action to the forefront. The worst thing you can do in a crisis is freeze. You do not want to freeze, but you want to bring action as one of your first activities. And again, in building strategies, I think what's important is that you have to be able to make decisions, and what you have to do in a crisis is there are no perfect decisions. You make the best decision that you can at the time with the best information that you are provided at that time. But you do have to make a decision. You have to build a strategy. And I think what's also important is Once you do start to make the decisions, you have to be agile enough to pivot when it's appropriate. You have to be able to adjust, be flexible, be fluid. But once you make decisions, you have to realize you're not married to those decisions, that you have to be able to pivot. And then you always have to remember you're not in it alone. You have to be able to delegate, and you have to trust your people. You have to trust your people.
I love it.
Move it forward.
Yay. That's fantastic. I mean, there's so much in what you just said. We could have 2 or 3 hour show just on that. So let me pivot to Jennifer for a moment, because everything that Voviette said applies to the private sector as well. So Jennifer, you have to manage the panic in your customers who are looking at you to protect their net worth, and your employees, of which there are thousands, looking to you to protect their jobs. So give us some insight on how you've been dealing with this.
Great. Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you also for having us. It's a privilege to be on with Voviette, my friend and colleague in the EWA group. I'll just compliment. I love what she said about, I would say, make errors of action, not inaction. And I really like the way Voviette laid it out. I'll paint the picture to complement what she said, which is, let's pretend you're in a forest, everything goes dark. You've never been in this forest before with a big group of people. Who is the person you hand the flashlight to? It's not the person with a particular title on their business card. It's the person that you feel has 2 qualities. One, they know the way out, so they have a clear vision and a way forward that they've somehow articulated very quickly and compellingly. And 2 is they believe that you care, that you have their best interests at heart, that you understand them on some level. And then I would add a third one is you communicate well. Communication is so important. You know, Voviette said, don't freeze. The other thing is don't freeze your communication. So those 3 tenets in leading in chaos, I think, are really important. And when communicating, to say the words, and what this means to you is, whether it's an employee, whether it's a client or anyone else. And then obviously in the chaos of particular types, the humanness of people's safety is the very first and primary area to address. The safety of our people, because our own people take care of our clients. And so safety is really, really important. And then for people's money and for wealth, because that's what we deal in every day, is there needs to be a framework for their wealth. So there needs to be 3 separate categories. What's the liquidity? Do I have the money that I need for right now? The second is what we would call longevity. Do I have the money for later? And then the third would be legacy or impact. Do I have money to make an impact on the people and the causes that I care about? And so having a framework, which is essentially how am I going to allocate my budget, my money, my wealth, is really important, because it gives people not just a return on investment, but a return on lives.
So Jennifer, both you and Voviette are presenting almost a fearless approach to leading in chaos. And yet a lot of people are really afraid. They're afraid they're going to lose their money. They're afraid they're going to lose their lives. How do you deal with fear in the marketplace? The stock market's going crazy. It's up, it's down. Jennifer, how do you deal with people's fears?
Well, one, the most important is listen, understand, acknowledge, understand what's behind the fear. Is it fear of loss? Is it fear of lifestyle? Is it fear of some relationship? Is it fear of career? Whatever their fear is, understand and empathize and identify with it. And then it's really important to let them know the safety. So in terms of the wealth, we've laid out this framework for you. We've put a plan and a strategy together for you. Things will go up and down, but that strategy doesn't necessarily change based on the ups and downs. It could, but readdressing that. And then in terms of communication broadly, in terms of leadership, I think it's really important to think through a communication strategy where you have one-to-one, you have one-to-many, and then you can also have influence through small group dialogues, 4, 5, 6, 8 people. So those three ways, and thinking through in advance, how am I going to use communication for impact, for calmness, for influence, individually with high priority people, one to many, and then small groups. And then in terms of people and their wealth and clients, letting them know the safety of your firm, letting them know that where things are, and again, back to communication. But really, as a leader, and whether you're handling people's lives or handling their money or both, put your own oxygen mask on first. Make sure that you've allocated the energy that you need, the resources that you need, the relationships you need to support yourself as a leader, and time and balance of time. Those are the most precious resources that we have. And putting our own oxygen mask on first is really important.
Yeah, I love that. Voviette, you actually send your people into harm's way. That is a humongous responsibility for you as the special agent in charge. How did you get your head around that?
Well, I don't know if you ever get your head around it completely. You just have to operate in the environment. But I love some of what Jennifer said, because that's always my leading mantra is I have to do everything in my power to keep my people safe, to put them in the most safest environment under very dangerous situations. And the challenge is it's never 100% safe. There's always a level of risk involved. And again, you just have to own that risk, do all your due diligence, and then you just have to let your people and their level of subject matter expertise, you have to let them do what they do. You know, when you have a bunch of racehorses, you have to let them run. And you just have to move forward. But a little bit of danger and risk is unfortunately a part of our day-to-day engagement.
Yeah, I can see that. So just pivoting a little bit, both of you are leaders who obviously are women, and you're in industries that are not particularly open to that many women, or certainly have had not many women leaders. I'd love to hear from you a little bit, Jennifer. How have you managed that in your life and to be so successful? And did you dream about being in wealth management when you were a little girl?
Maybe not too little, but I do have my grandmother to thank for teaching me how to read the Wall Street Journal. So it did start at an early age. Well, I think about this, whether you're a person of color, a woman, someone where you feel like you're, everyone isn't exactly like you. And that's obviously a topic in today's world. The one thing I always started with is trying to figure out, how do I make other people comfortable with me? Take a responsibility to start with. Is how do I understand them, listen to them, learn from them, make them comfortable with me. Two is I went back to the one-on-one. One-on-one impacts people's relationships and decisions and helps open doors. And then third, I would say I searched for open doors and I tried to create them for other people. I think that's really important. I mean, for instance, the former head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, made a statement a couple months ago saying, I will not go to a meeting where I'm the only woman. And she's really trying to create open doors for other people. So it's a positive. So search for open doors, create them for other people. And then, an expression that I've been accused of, but I think it's good, which is grit with grace. If I'm abrasive, I'm not persuasive, then I'm too gritty. But if I'm too gracious, then I don't help push things forward for other people and for the mission and the cause of what I'm working toward or the organization. So create open doors for other people, one-on-one influences relationships, and grit with grace.
I love that, because that's really what EWA is all about. And Voviette, I'm going to pass it to you, but Justin tells me we've got lots of questions, so we want to make sure to get to those questions. So tell us a little bit about, how did you dream about being an FBI agent when you were a little girl?
I definitely did not. joining the FBI never entered into my sphere. As I think you can probably imagine, I don't think many of us in the African American community grow up saying, I want to be an FBI agent. But I had the luck and the great fortune of just being out socially one evening with a bunch of friends, bunch of girlfriends actually, and at the table next to us was a group of gentlemen. As you can imagine, as the evening progressed, our two tables kind of started to merge, and as fate would have it for me, interestingly enough, all of those guys at that table, they were all federal agents, unbeknownst to all of us. They were just spending some time together after work, and they were all federal agents, a couple of FBI agents, a couple of Secret Service agents, DEA agents, etc. But I ended up befriending one of them, and it was fantastic because we became friends, we got to know each other, and as he got to know me, he one day just said, you should join the FBI. And it was, let's say, history from there, but never thought of joining the FBI. But that's when it's great, when you keep your options open, when you make kind of good judgment decisions as you grow up and as you enter into adulthood. And the bottom line is you want to be able to take advantage of any opportunity that presents itself. And when you first hear it, no matter how crazy it may sound, but one of the best decisions I made, and here I am 23 years later. So yes, a little bit of fate on my end, but never thought about joining the FBI as a child.
Well, listen, you've obviously made such a huge success. Okay, let's go to Justin, who is standing by with a whole bunch of questions. Justin.
Hello there. Hello there. Justin here. We've got a ton of great questions here following the feed. Of course, we're simulcasting on a number of social channels and platforms. And so we've been following the feed, folks from all around the world, from coast to coast across the US, even over to Europe and beyond. See some folks from Bogota to, it looks like Australia is dialed in. So hello to everybody, we hear you. Got a couple questions. The first one is gonna harken back or go back to Jennifer. Earlier, you mentioned showing care. And so the question is from Kate Gilmore from Torrance, and she says, how do you personally show that you care?
Thanks for the question. Wow, that is a resonant one for today for sure. You know, there was a book that I read years ago. Someone gave it to me when my husband and I were first married, called The 5 Love Languages. And it's basically the 5 ways you can show that you care, that is all human. Acts of service, words of appreciation, quality time together. So those were among those. And I think figuring out what someone else's love language, if you will, or caring language is, and trying to fill that. So for some people, they want more of my time. For others, they want praise and appreciation noticed. And for others, it's acts of service and getting things done for them. So those are some of the ways that I try to show care.
No, that's wonderful. You know, I wish we could see our audience because there's so many questions coming in. It's so exciting. If you ladies don't mind, I want to ask Justin to give us one more because he's itching there to get him out to us. Go ahead, Justin.
You better believe it. We do. I've got a couple more lined up, so hopefully we can get to everybody. This one, I'm going to go across the water here. So Marisa Fassi from Florence, Italy asks, Voviette, we know that failure is key to success. Can you give any kind of examples of how that played out in your life to get you where you are and that you use day to day?
Marisa, thank you for the question. And you're exactly right. Failure is a part of the process. And it is that old adage that if you're not, sometimes making mistakes, you're not learning. And so failure is a part of the process. I think for me, and it's a little bit to the question that Jennifer got as far as dealing with people, I've had some, I don't know if I'll call them failures, but I've learned a lot in how I engage with the people that I'm responsible for. And, leading people is challenging. And I've had some incidences where, if you will, I've butted heads sometimes with some of the folks where everyone has very strong personalities sometimes in my line of work. And I think probably my biggest lesson from a leadership perspective is that it's a little bit trial and error, and that you do have to learn from your mistakes. And then you have to adjust your behavior, where I think criticism is a very positive thing, and you use that to your advantage. But I think some of my biggest learning development is in managing people and making those adjustments, because when you've managed one person, you've managed one person. Everyone's personalities are very different. And I think good leaders, you make that adjustment because you take the time to learn about your people, their strengths and weaknesses. And I think that too is an example of caring for your people, because people respond differently to, if you will, leadership. So I think it's very important to learn your people and to make adjustments, but you have to care enough to do that.
Yeah, terrific. Justin is telling me he's got more questions, but before we go to him, I am just burning to ask the two of you. You have been with the FBI a lot of years, Voviette, and I know there's a mandatory retirement age. And I personally think, being a board director myself, that you would be a spectacular board director. You deal with cybersecurity and all kinds of interesting things. What do you think?
Well, I love it. I think I would have an interest in that, because Lorraine, you're not the only person that has brought that to my attention, and you're exactly right. I hope I could add value in that type of environment, because over my 23 years, I have gotten a lot of broad-based operating experience on how to run a pretty large-scale operation, from everything top to bottom, personnel, business operations. And, one thing that we do on a daily basis is solve big problems. And I think that I have learned how to do that. And I think that type of trait could be valuable in getting into board governance. But I think a lot of what I have done translates into that type of experience that could be value added. A lot of experience investigating financial institutions, white collar fraud investigative matters, physical security. All of those things I think would add value. And so it's something I'm exploring, and something that I am potentially interested in. So that's very keen of you to make mention of that.
Well, I am excited, and I know that if I had you on the public board I'm on, I would also feel secure. So, Jennifer, same question to you. You will be eventually at a point where, if not now, that you could do board service, and you have so much to offer. What do you think your value would be for a public board?
Well, I'm blessed to be on, thanks for asking, Lorraine, and I am blessed to be on a private company technology firm board right now, and obviously some nonprofit boards as well, which has been incredibly enriching, because the people around in the boardroom are amongst the greatest to learn from. I think from all the years of operating experience in P&L, that lends itself to making resource trade-offs and decisions, the whole dynamic of digital transformation that we've seen our industry go through, especially recently, and how to help people move along in their behavior in digital transformation, as well as consumer behavior, which the intersection of money and consumer behavior and decisions is inextricably linked. So I think that's pretty valuable. Strategic thinking on trade-offs, and then sort of, one of my sayings is knowledge shows up on tests, but wisdom shows up in relationships. And I think in a boardroom, it's really critical to have that level of wisdom to be a guide and a partner to the CEO and to the rest of the organization. So that would be a privilege as well.
So Jennifer and Voviette, you have both managed huge budgets. And Jennifer, you've talked about managing capital and that women need to manage capital. Why do you say that?
I think it's really important. It's one of my passions is to help. I was privileged to speak at the Barron's Women's Conference keynote, and the topic I picked was helping women oversee more capital, whether you're a woman or a man. Your own capital, number one, because it's the fastest growing group of wealth is women in this world. So that's one, taking financial literacy seriously yourself to manage your own capital. Two is taking the hard road. This is about the road less traveled, the show. And there are very few women running P&Ls percentage-wise. So I'd love to see that increased because that's bigger decisions and that's more capital allocated with women and men together. And then the third group, besides leadership, would be entrepreneurs and capital to women entrepreneurs. So I think all of those are great ways where we can help other women have that experience.
Oh, I think that's so important. And Voviette, you manage a very big budget with tons of employees. You have joined the EWA, which is 90% businesswomen and 10% women from the public sector. What has been the value for you in being in this group from that point of view?
Well, I think big picture, it's been such a value of really being around women like-minded, where everyone has a level of passion for what they do. And it's funny because I don't really make the distinction between the private or the public sector engagement. It's just phenomenal to be around women and to have that camaraderie where everyone is making a difference. Everyone, if you will, is an impact player in their arena. And I love being surrounded by that. And that's what EWA has afforded me, that opportunity to get out of my comfort zone of law enforcement and the public sector, the government sector, and engage more with, great women who are doing phenomenal things in the private sector. But it's more at the core of who all these women are, that they are trailblazers and really leading the way and making a difference. So I've really enjoyed that.
Oh, that's fabulous. And Jennifer, in terms of your experience with EWA?
It's like being on a championship team where there's a great player from every industry, and the 18 inches between all of their really smart heads and their hearts is short. So it's all integrated. So you get the character, the caring, and the competence, all those things together. And learning and growing together in community is a big deal.
Yes, it certainly
And
is.
Lorraine,
Well,
if I may, could I
Sure.
add one thing? I was listening to Jennifer, and I think we both too, as we've, I think, talked about it, is getting together, and it's a safe environment. It's a safe environment to have just some wonderful dialogue where we can talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, if you will. And I think that's important. And that's the uniqueness and specialness of the EWA.
I agree with you. And certainly I learn something every day. And every time we get together as a group, we learn something. And, there are amazing men that support us as well. And we want to make sure to give a shout out to them, because you cannot applaud with one hand in the marketplace. It's always working together in a multi-gender and very complex environment. So the two of you are spectacular guests. I wish we had a lot of time left. I want to thank you, Voviette, for taking your time. I know how busy you are right at this very moment, and I thank you for giving us your time today.
Thank you. It was a privilege to be with you today, Lorraine. Thank you very much for the invitation.
You're so welcome. And Jennifer, you are such a superstar in your industry, as is Voviette, and I know you are busier than anything. This is not a time to be sitting around, so I really appreciate your giving us your time and your insights today as well.
Thank you. It's been a true pleasure to be with both of you and with our guests.
Thank you. And I apologize to all of you who have asked incredible questions, and I wish we could spend much more time with you today. My desire would be to have multiple hours, and what we'll do is maybe we'll invite these amazing guests back to hear more of their insights. But do not fear, we have an amazing show scheduled for you coming up on July the 6th. We will be interviewing two amazing women during that show. The first one is Linda Lorraine. Linda is the former CEO of Giorgio Beverly Hills. Do you remember that fragrance? It was one of my favorites. And Fredericks of Hollywood, and she is now the CEO of Enjoy Global, which is a culture change company, very, very important nowadays. Our other guest on July the 6th will be Janelle Beeler. Janelle is the Senior Vice President of Adecco, which is a 12 billion global staffing company. They're going to talk to us about the amazingly turbulent times we are in, about how to do turnarounds, about how to find a job and dig ourselves into out of the hole that we're in from the pandemic and into a growth cycle. So please join us then. And I leave our audience with one challenge for you, and that is, how do you lead in turbulent, chaotic times? Look forward to seeing you on July 6th, everybody. Thank you for being with us.